Love versus trust. Because sometimes, the biggest betrayal isn't cheating. It's testing someone who never planned to fail you. From the outside, they looked perfect. The kind of love people prayed for. But what people don't see is what fear can do behind closed doors. They weren't just lovers. They were best friends. Built from struggle, not comfort. But Daniel had loved before. And that love broke him in ways he never fixed. He trusted her. But not enough to silence the voice in his head. It started as a joke. Test her, his friend said. Find out who she really is. Some ideas don't destroy you immediately. They wait. Money was exchanged. Not for loyalty. But to break it. It wasn't obvious. Just a stranger, starting a conversation. She smiled, but kept distance. Respectfully. Loyally. And from a distance. He watched. Not with trust. But with suspicion. The test became a game. And the game became a trap. Because the stranger didn't just flirt. He listened. Just as he was wondering in his thought and assumption standing, he received a call. He quickly left. This made him more restless and uncertain to what to believe. He got home that evening. But nothing about it felt like home. The silence was louder than usual. The kind that doesn't just sit in the room. It sits in your chest. He dropped his keys on the table. Same spot, same routine. But tonight, even that felt unfamiliar. His mind wouldn't rest. It kept circling the same question. Over and over again. He picked up his phone. No new messages. Her last text was in days. Short. Cold. Unlike her. That wasn't her. Or maybe. It was, and he just never noticed before. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. But all he could see was doubt. Because love doesn't just disappear overnight. It fades. Quietly. Subtly. And then suddenly. You realize you've been alone for a while. His thoughts started racing faster now. Could she be cheating on me? He hated the question the moment it formed. But once a thought like that enters your mind, it doesn't leave. It grows. And something had changed. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But he did. The calls became shorter. The laughter, less real. The way she looked at him, different. Or maybe, she had stopped looking at him at all. Distance. Not physical. But emotional. Silence. Not peaceful. But uncomfortable. He stood up, pacing slowly. Trying to connect moments. Trying to make sense of something that didn't want to be understood. Because deep down, he didn't want the answer. But fear doesn't wait for permission. It whispers. It plants ideas. It rewrites reality. And that night, for the first time, Daniel didn't feel like a man in love. He felt like a man being replaced. She had always felt it. Even when things looked fine on the surface. That quiet loneliness. The kind you can't explain without sounding ungrateful. She loved him. Truly. Not the kind of love that fades easily. But the kind that stays, even when it hurts. She tried to reach him. More times than she could count. Conversations about feelings. About connection. About them. But every time, it felt like she was speaking a language he didn't understand. So she stayed. She adjusted. She convinced herself that love meant patience. That maybe, one day, he would finally see her. But loneliness doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. And then, someone else showed up. Not loudly. Not forcefully. Just, present. He listened. Not to reply, but to understand. He noticed things. The way her voice softened when she talked about her dreams. The way she paused when she was holding something back. Things Daniel used to notice before life got in the way. At first, it meant nothing. Just conversations. Simple moments. Safe. But then, those moments became something else. Something she didn't plan. Something she didn't even want to admit to herself. She found herself smiling at her phone. Waiting for replies. Thinking about conversations long after they ended. And that scared her. Because she wasn't that person. She wasn't trying to replace him. She wasn't trying to fall for someone else. But something inside her was shifting. Slowly. Quietly. Not because she wanted to. But because she felt unseen. And sometimes, when someone finally sees you, it becomes harder to go back to being invisible. The test wasn't giving him peace. It was feeding something else. Something darker. At first, he told himself it was control. That he needed certainty. That knowing the truth would finally quiet his mind. But the more he watched, the more he checked, the more he waited, the worse it became. Because now, every delay meant something. Every smile meant something. Every silence felt like proof. His thoughts didn't ask questions anymore. They made conclusions. She's pulling away. She's hiding something. She's choosing him. And the dangerous part? None of it had to be real anymore. Because fear doesn't need evidence. It builds its own story. Piece by piece. Until it feels more real than the truth. He stopped sleeping properly. Stopped focusing. Even when she was right in front of him. He was somewhere else. Watching. Doubting. Comparing. And the test? It was no longer about her loyalty. It had become his obsession. Because the truth is, he didn't just want to know if she would fail. He was slowly becoming the reason she might. She sat across from him that night. Not as a stranger anymore. But not fully as herself either. The conversation flowed easily. Too easily. No pressure. No confusion. Just understanding. For the first time in a long time. She wasn't trying to explain how she felt. She was just feeling. And that scared her. Because the truth was, she was beginning to like him. Not suddenly. Not recklessly. But gradually. In the quiet way emotions grow when they feel safe. He made her laugh. He listened. He noticed. Things she had been missing. Without realizing how much she needed them. She was honest that night. Not about everything. But about enough. Her loneliness. Her confusion. The space she felt in her own relationship. And he didn't judge her. He leaned in. Closer than before. But then. Something slipped. It wasn't obvious. Just a detail. A sentence that didn't sit right. A reaction that came too quickly. Like it had been rehearsed. She didn't interrupt him. Didn't question it. Didn't react. Because when a woman starts connecting dots, she doesn't rush. She observes. She listens, harder. And suddenly, everything started making sense. The timing. The approach. The persistence. This wasn't random. She leaned back slightly, her eyes studying him now. Not emotionally. But intentionally. And that's when she asked. Calm, controlled, almost too quiet. Why did you really approach me? For the first time. He hesitated. Silence. A long one. And then. He said it. It wasn't real. A pause. I was paid. No music could cover that moment. No words could soften it. Because in that second, everything she thought she was building collapsed. Not just him. Not just the moment. But the man she had been trying so hard to love all along. He expected anger. Something loud. Something he could respond to. Maybe even forgiveness. Something he could hold on to. But what he got was something worse. Calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from peace, but from being done. She stood there, not shaking. Not crying. Just looking at him like she finally understood everything. And in that moment, he realized. He had already lost her. Her voice was steady. Not cold. Just certain. You didn't test my loyalty. A pause. You exposed your insecurity. Each word landed heavier than the last. I was always yours. She swallowed slightly, but didn't break. Until you decided I wasn't enough to trust. Silence filled the space between them. Not empty. But final. He opened his mouth to speak. But nothing came out. Because what do you say? When the truth has already spoken? She stepped back slowly. Not in anger. Not in revenge. But in clarity. And that was the part that hurt the most. Because he didn't lose her to another man. There was no competition. No betrayal. He lost her. To his own fear. The door closed gently. No slam. No drama. Just an ending. That didn't need noise to be permanent. Because sometimes, the person who breaks your heart is the one who was afraid. You did break theirs first.